Today's question is, what high school conspiracy turned out to be true at your school?
Two of the teachers hooking up on a Europe class trip. Gone for a week, came back, and the rumor started. 2 weeks later, a rumor started he got divorced. Last week of school, they were spotted at a restaurant together. Looked him up a couple years after graduating. They're married. There was this weird closet built into the middle of the hallway. Yep, the middle. So you had to walk around a giant block of a closet, but the door was always locked. Every morning before the bell rang, we'd meet up by the closet block because it was close to our lockers. The rumor was that it was full of mold because our school was underfunded and gross, but I figured it was just janitorial supplies. I had never seen a janitor go in there, but why would they leave a closet full of mold? Plus, there was already a room that was full of mold. The old boiler room, which was underground and hadn't been used in decades. Then one day, the door was unlocked. Mold. So much mold. Multiple stacks of German textbooks were rotting inside this closet. The pages were wavy and stuck together, and the whole thing was covered in black spots with a white dust on top. The closer you got to the bottom of the stack, the more uniform the books became. They had literally melted together and dried, Lord knows how many times. I simply closed the door and said, "Well, guys, I guess this is why we only have Spanish as our foreign language." TLDR, weird closet full of mold that was dealt with by being locked all the time. My algebra teacher was having an online affair. She would teach for about 5 minutes and then tell us to read to ourselves and do our work while she typed away on her computer. One day, she just didn't show up. Turns out she up and left in the middle of the night to move out to Ohio to be with her internet boyfriend. Pretty mild, but I grew up in a town of 700 people, so it was huge news. Also, our volleyball/track coach sleeping with senior girls. There was even a fist fight between 2 girls over this. I didn't really pay much attention until I got into high school and joined track. He had me doing weird stretches when he was directly behind me while I was bent over. I was super innocent and fairly dumb about sex. I knew it was creepy, but I just rolled with it, although I was uncomfortable. One of the boys on the track team I swore who hated me because he was always picking on me pulled me aside and told me what the coach was doing was perverted, and he was clearly excited the whole time. This kid went to the principal in my defense, and the coach resigned the next year. I don't believe he was ever caught, but after he resigned, I learned his wife was a former student of his, and their relationship started while she was in high school. Edit. I'm not sure the kid really liked me. He was a year older than me, and he went out of his way to make fun of me, but was my older cousin's best friend. I was probably looked at as more of an annoying little sister type, even though I rarely initiated speaking to him. He did make it a point to start standing behind me, with his back turned to me, or watch over as I did my stretches with my back to the wall. I think he was just watching out for me for my cousin. He never tried anything or asked me out. He was more annoyed I went along without asking questions as to why the coach was having me do some clearly shady shit. Oh boy, let me tell you the tale of shit legs. One of my friend's older sister, who went to our high school 5 years before we did, was at a party and wound up drunkenly hooking up with a guy. Apparently, she was feeling adventurous and decided to try anal. Cue them finishing and pulling out and proceeding to release a geyser of shit of Old Faithful level proportions. Shit on the bed, shit all over their clothes, shit all over themselves. It was like that scene in the live-action 101 Dalmatian when Glenn Close falls into the molasses. Understandably embarrassed, and not wanting to leave via the normal route through the still very active house party, she hastily decides to leave via the second-floor window without even taking the time to put on her clothes. She jumps, breaks her legs on the front door stairs below, and is stranded, naked, and covered in shit on the front lawn. I should mention this was during the height of a Canadian winter and minus 20 degrees. With nowhere to go and urgent care needed before she passed out from shock and froze to death, she was left with no recourse but to knock on the door and crawl back into the party of 100 of her peers to phone an ambulance. We thought our friend was lying until 6 of our older friends who were there confirmed it. TLDR. Friend's sister tries anal at a party, shits all over herself, jumps out the window to avoid the embarrassment, breaks her legs from the fall and has to go back into the party, naked and covered in shit, to phone help. Not in high school, but it was in elementary. There was this conspiracy that somewhere near our school there is an abandoned, 2-story, old, creepy house. In the residential lot there is also an external restroom, locked. Few people living nearby can hear strange noises at night coming from it. Common hearsay states that a strange person is living inside and there with nothing to eat but his own fecal excretions, with his slippers as his dinner plate. So we decided to check on it on our noon breaks and got into the lot. The locked restroom only had ventilation by decorative blocks that had decorated holes on it, so we could only peek a little. We got something to climb onto and peeked on the holes. And there it was. There really was a strange man living in it. Walls nothing but feces, emitted very foul odor. The man started screaming and threw it fecal matter on the walls. We started to bolt the F out of there and never came back since. It turns out the man had some violent mental disorders and the family decided to lock him up in there. I think the neighbors were the ones that fed him. Poor man. I do not know what is his status now as it's been a long time ago, too vague to remember. English teacher who was close with students, not in a pervy way, but more like he was a fellow student instead of an authority figure, was hosting weekend poker parties with his closest students where he would serve booze and weed. One weekend, someone prank called the cops claiming one of these parties was happening. They went to his place, and there was one happening as described, but with porn on every TV in the house. Teacher was immediately fired, had his license revoked, and disappeared for a couple of years. Students tried protesting the firing because, well, he was the cool guy who gave them weed and booze. According to social media stalking, he's back teaching English at a high school a few hours south of my town now. Edit. We absolutely thought the dude was a perv once the story broke that there was porn involved. Everyone just thought he just wanted kids to think he was cool before the real story came out. There was a conspiracy about this student who was a weed dealer. Apparently, he hid his stash in the band room drum closet. He was a band kid and got expelled for something unrelated. It is said he was unable to retrieve his stash. Fast forward about 10 to 13 years. The drum line and I were practicing in the band room. The student playing bass drum 3 enters the closet to retrieve a new pair of sticks after breaking the shit out of one of his own. He throws the broken stick at the ceiling in an attempt to get it stuck in the tile. The ceiling tile falls out and lo and behold, around 2 ounces of cannabis. The bag was incredibly dusty. One of the corners had been chewed by a mouse. The weed inside was a bit moldy. But there it was, in all its glory. The rumors were true. We, being dumb high school kids, decided to smoke some that looked like it didn't have any mold on it. There was. 3 of us puked, and one of us had a mold allergy and their throat closed up, forcing us to call an ambulance. All of us ended up okay, except for bass drum 3 dude. Years later, he fell off of a rock climbing wall and landed funny. He unfortunately passed due to his injuries a few days after falling. But the conspiracy was true. We were one of only 2 private girls-only schools in our county, but we were a small school with not a lot of money, and the other school was much larger and more prestigious. They had an orangery on the grounds. They still saw us as enough of a threat that on our open days, their headmistress would come along and idly mention to parents that she'd heard our school was in dire financial straits and would be shutting down soon. A lot of these parents panicked and did exactly as she'd planned, transferring their daughters into the other school, which eventually led to our school losing students and money and shutting down 4.5 weeks into the school year when I was 14. My year was the largest in the school when it closed down, with just 20 pupils. The school shutting down made the local news, and various people were asked to give comment, like parents, board trustees, and other head teachers. When the headmistress of the other school was asked to give comment, she said, "It's very sad to hear, but this does mean that my school is now the only girls-only school in the county." Her school was quick to offer girls at my school places, which meant being made to sit an entrance exam which they'd had little preparation for, and then immediately afterwards, their parents were pressured into signing a contract saying they'd send their daughters there. A lot of the younger girls and their parents got taken in this way, but they passed on what had happened to them to the parents of the older girls like me, who were wise to how this school operated. By the time she tried it on my mom, saying that I'd have to take the entrance exam immediately after finishing my last day at school and then immediately signed a contract, my mom just said, "I'm not putting my daughter through that." I didn't particularly like the school I ended up at, but I'm still so thankful I didn't end up at the other girls' school. All the girls I knew who went there said it was toxic, and they were bullied. About a year ago, they had to take on male pupils for the first time to keep up numbers and funds, and I was quietly smug. Only girls only school in the county, bollocks. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you liked the video, and lastly, don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.